the word Sangha, which not all of you might know what that is. Sometimes it's translated, or people say it's community, but it's really spiritual community. I'd say like a community of people who are trying to grow spiritually and supporting each other in that work. And I really encourage you to find sanghas in your life. I'm sure many of you, or maybe most of you, are already in some, but this is one more that's offered to you. We were going to start with having everyone do a little check-in, but it feels like there's a lot of people. So maybe what I will ask is maybe asking everyone to just check in with one word that describes something that's present for you. You're also welcome to add like where you're zooming in from. And then if it's appropriate, something that's been helpful for you in the last week, a helpful practice, tool or practice, particularly after getting the results of the election last week, if, something that's maybe, if you have had the tendency to spin out around it, something that's kind of brought you back, for example. So it's just kind of a sharing with each other in the chat. If that's all right. Or if, maybe we could also mix it up if there's anyone who feels more comfortable like saying it out loud, using the raise hand function, perhaps.
Oh, you know what? Maybe I have it
The
set
chat.
on.
Oh, I don't think the chat. Yeah, maybe it's not
Yeah,
working.
let's see.
Sorry about that.
Maybe you can read out what people are saying while I figure out how to change that.
Um, anyone, does anyone want to check in just
I
like
can share,
live?
Bill.
Grateful. Okay. Now I'm seeing at least one. But it just came to me directly. Mandy, so I don't know if
Yes,
you could
I'm
put in
just,
everyone. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and Laura said, not trying to understand, just accept the differences. Mandy said, grateful. Um, and someone else, sorry, someone started talking. Go ahead.
I was going to share. I could come off mute. Sorry, I'm a little bit under the weather, but Tuan Green, super blessed and honest to be in the space with you all. One technique that has been really helpful for me these past weeks is the 4-7-8 breathing technique. It's really been able to, sometimes when I get real anxious and my heart starts going, using that breathing technique has really been able to calm me down and bring me back into space.
And could I clarify, is that breathing in on a count of 4, holding for a count of 7, breathing out on a count of
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Someone told me at work, and then I was getting ready to ask a question I was at a conference, and for some reason I got real nervous. And so I did it right before my question, and everything was like, oh, okay, this actually does work. There's some science behind this.
Awesome. Thank you. And just Ilea wrote being in nature. Sherry wrote noticing silver linings. So it's nice. Yeah.
we also have Energized in Oakland from Morgan. Jody says, at the Grapevine, heading home from a trip to Paso Robles, the answer for her is being in nature. Isra says, singing in a small group and community and yoga. Carol says, anxious, meta has been helping. Amanda says, I've had a personal silent disco parties every night for the past 2 weeks, putting on my headphones, turning up the music, and dancing for 20 minutes. Will says, choosing joy in every morning with focus.
Rachel says lighting a candle at dinner table to be present. Devesh says excited to be in community with another provider of mental health care, working to find the right flavor and balance of compassion. And I will speak later after the meditation on a little bit on compassion. Yeah. I just, I want to acknowledge in this setting that, I mean, I don't know how everyone feels in this group, and I'm sure we all feel differently. But I imagine at least the majority of the group is not happy with the results of last week's election, to say the least. And if you're not in that group, you're also welcome here today, and maybe going through something else. But I think what we'll do is I will go ahead and lead a practice. I think there's probably people here of mixed experience with mindfulness. So given that, I'll probably give a little bit more instruction. If you're someone who has more experience, you could maybe just tune me out after a while until you hear the bell at the end. This will be about 20-minute practice. I'll close before the bell with a poem at the end. So to start with, finding a posture, like getting into an intentional posture. If you're not used to a sitting practice, a meditation practice, I usually recommend that you try to sit in a way that the hips are higher than the knees, if that's available for you. If it's not, don't worry about it. It just sometimes helps keep the back straight for a longer period. Sometimes I do that by putting an extra cushion under my bottom or something like that. And trying to sit with an upright, straight posture, maybe a little arch in the back, but with the neck and the head kind of in line with the spine, so everything's upright. And letting the eyes close if that's comfortable for you. You're also welcome to have the eyes slightly open and downcast if that's better. And just bringing awareness into the present moment experience, the current kind of weather pattern of your mind, of your body. So noticing a big picture where the thoughts are going, how the body's doing, what the emotional state is currently. And just allowing whatever's here to be here. This is not about trying to actively change or resist. It's just really noticing right now how you're feeling, how you're doing. And then bringing the attention more into the body. So I'd like to start by just checking in with a few areas in the body where a lot of us tend to hold tension, starting with the face and in particular the forehead and the eye sockets, and just noticing if there's a little tension there, a little tightness, and inviting it to soften, to let go, relax. And then checking in with the jaw, noticing if there's any clenching or holding there and letting that loosen, soften. Moving the attention down into the neck and the shoulders. Here too, just inviting some relaxation, letting go. And then shifting the attention down further into the torso, and in particular into the belly, where we often are holding without even realizing it. So letting that be soft. And just feeling the gentle pull of gravity, feeling it maybe where you're sitting in the feet. Just knowing that that represents our connection to the earth. I also like to recommend trying on at least a little smile during the practice, kind of a subtle half smile. Maybe someone looking at you wouldn't even notice that you're smiling, kind of a Mona Lisa smile. It's just like sort of setting an intention of kind of letting the body smile, noticing how that feels when you do it. And if it's weird or awkward, you can let it go. It's okay. Any instruction I give is optional. So now bringing the attention into the body again, this time really focusing on the breath. And before we even Just focus on the breath, taking some deep breaths. And as you take a few deep breaths at your own pace, starting to feel the breath in the body. And then letting go of breathing in any particular way and just transitioning into letting the body breathe itself as it does naturally, normally, most of the time. And finding a part of the body where it's easy to feel the sensations of breathing, or where it's easiest, at least, where the breath feels most vivid. So it could be in the nostrils, kind of feeling the air coming in and out of the nostrils, touching the upper lip, maybe. Or maybe it's a sensation of the chest rising and falling, expanding and contracting, or maybe the belly. And just resting the attention there, allowing yourself to just feel the sensations of breathing. And if for any reason breath is difficult for you, if you have any kind of issues with your breathing, asthma or something, and it's uncomfortable, anxiety provoking to follow the breath, choose another anchor. It could be just feeling into the sensations in your feet, your hands, your bottom on the chair. These are also places that it's usually easy to feel sensation, or relatively easy. And just remembering there's nowhere else you need to be right now. Nothing that you need to do. There's no goals for this practice except just being present. So we're kind of moving from a driven doing mind that we're usually in into a simple being mind, being with what's here. So feeling the in-breath, feeling the out-breath, or feeling whatever other anchor you've chosen. Simply being with what's here. And especially if you're not used to this practice, this simplicity, you've probably noticed, is not easy. Mind wants to go somewhere else, and that's okay. It's what the mind likes to do. It's what the mind wants to do. It's what the mind does, just accepting that. And so the way we work with that is not to try to push away our thoughts or empty our brain. We just notice where the mind's gone. Maybe simply labeling that, noting it, planning mind, remembering mind, fixing mind, calculating mind, whatever the mind is doing, noticing it and kind of just stepping back from it a little bit, seeing it. And when you're ready, gently and kindly escorting the attention back to the anchor, so to the sensations of breath, or to this another part of the body that you've chosen to focus on. And each time you have this opportunity to welcome yourself back, it could be a little celebration, like welcoming yourself home. So rather than judging the busy mind, actually instead celebrating the opportunity to begin again. It's really a core part of the practice. Also, when you bring the attention back to the body, it might be an opportunity to, again, sort of check in to see if there's any tension that's arisen, and gently releasing that, softening any areas of tightness or tension as you return the attention back to the body. Remembering that this is what it's like right now. Really noticing the tendency to want it to be different. And not pushing that away, opening up to that too, really allowing whatever arises to be here, welcoming it, noticing it without judging it, without needing to fix anything, just being aware of what is. Sometimes it's unpleasant. Sometimes it's pleasant. Sometimes it's neutral. You can notice that as well. But you don't have to do anything about it right now. So using your anchor as a home base, somewhere that you can come back to again and again and stay for as long as you're able to stay, and then to come back again and again and again. As many times as the mind wanders off the anchor, that many times you can bring it back. Smiling if you like, letting the body be relaxed if you can. Cultivating a sense of kind, calm curiosity. Not the curiosity that's thinking. It's really just an interest, a receiving, being interested in what's present right now as you just sit and be. Being with this breath or this sensation. Nowhere else you need to go. Nothing you need to do. Nothing you need to fix, figure out, analyze. Just receiving the sensations that are here, noticing what else comes up with the sense of balance, with the sense of interest, calm. It's just like this right now. Letting the body be relaxed, so softening any tension that arises when you notice it, letting go. You also notice how you react to different thought patterns, different distractions. One way to do that is to really let go of the thinking part as best you can, but shifting to the body and noticing where in the body this thought pattern or this emotional pattern is landing, where it exists in the body, where is it manifesting, where and what, and just being with that, just paying attention to the quivering in the belly or the tightness in the chest or the heat behind the eyes, whatever ways you're reacting to the stories that come up, the narratives. And then when you're ready, coming back to the anchor again, body sensations, sensations of breathing. Perhaps you notice how thoughts come and go, body sensations come and go, breaths come and go. Sometimes in any given moment, it feels like it's this way and it's not going to change. And then we wait and it changes. And it's not from us making it change. It's just that's how things are. That's the nature. So we just watch that. We notice that with this calm, kind curiosity or interest, receiving the reality of what's here without having to change it, without needing to resist it or deny it, and also without needing to cling to it or get entangled in it. We sort of sit in the middle. We know it's there, we acknowledge it, we allow it to be there, but we don't have to mess with it, whatever the it is. And coming back again and again and again to the anchor, returning the attention to this precious body. Just seeing where the attention is right now. You bring it back with kindness, without any judgment, or if there is judgment that comes anyway, seeing if you can let go of the judgment. Being here now. Sometimes this practice is like being a snow globe, where the mind comes in all shaken up and little flakes floating all around, obscuring the view. And then gradually they might settle and there's a little bit more clarity. And that may or may not be your experience right now. It's okay either way. Whatever's happening, it's okay. Thanks. And I'll offer a little poem before you open your eyes, if the eyes are closed, keeping them closed for now, just taking this in. This is called The Dakini Speaks by Jennifer Wellwood. My friends, let's grow up. Let's stop pretending we don't know the deal here. Or if we truly haven't noticed, let's wake up and notice. Look, everything that can be lost will be lost. It's simple. How could we have missed it for so long? Let's grieve our losses fully, like ripe human beings, but please, let's not be so shocked by them. Let's not act so betrayed, as though life had broken her secret promise to us. Impermanence is life's only promise to us, and she keeps it with ruthless impeccability. To a child, she seems cruel, but she is only wild, and her compassion exquisitely precise, brilliantly penetrating, luminous with truth. She strips away the unreal to show us the real. This is the true ride. Let's give ourselves to it. Let's stop making deals for a safe passage. There isn't one anyway, and the cost is too high. We are not children anymore. The true human adult gives everything for what cannot be lost. Let's dance the wild dance of no hope. Thanks, everyone. I put the poem into the chat if that resonated with any of you and you want a copy. Um, those of you who've sat with me before, you know that I like to find poems that sort of resonate with the experience. So, a lot going on. I just want to, again, like, thank you all for being here. It's really, it's nice to see so many faces and names, many who I know. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, well, it's a big topic. It's kind of at the core of a lot of Buddhist teaching. And I say that as a mostly secular mindfulness teacher. I'm not a Dharma teacher per se. I'm not trained fully as a Dharma teacher. I do a lot of more secular mindfulness, but I find that it's hard to avoid incorporating, what I've learned from a Buddhist context as well. It's really perspective, psychology. It's uh, anyway, but the topic I was going to talk about is dukkha, which is the Pali word for usually translated as suffering. But it's not always, sometimes it's also translated as just stress or trying to remember. I always forget the word, which is not a real word, but it's a good word to use. And I jotted it down to remember. Or I thought I did anyway. Maybe I didn't. Anyway, yes, exactly. Unsatisfactoriness. Devesh, got it. You read my mind. Thank you. That's the word. Hello. Oh, so did Madeline. You both knew what I was thinking. This, I don't think that's a word we ever use in any other context. We'll say dissatisfaction or whatever, but this isn't quite right. I'm not, things need to be different. And that's kind of, for me, so for those of you who don't have much experience or any experience, the one of the key teachings in Buddhism, and reportedly the first teaching that the Buddha offered after he was awakening, is the teaching on the Four Noble Truths, or sometimes translated as ennobling truths. So like they're like, to know them actually gives us some nobility. Um, and the first truth, and I won't get probably too much past this, but maybe a little bit, is that there's suffering, that there's dukkha, there's stress, there's unsatisfactoriness in life. That's a given. And I will get a little past that. It's the second truth is that there's a cause of it. And the cause is, at least the way I understand it, sometimes it's translated as clinging or whatever, but I think of it as just not accepting things as they are, not allowing things to be as they are, needing things to be different than they actually are. And let me be clear. I don't mean we just accept everything and don't do anything to change it. But first we have to accept it, like that part. Like it's that lack of like acknowledging. And I think in a way, that's a little bit of what I've experienced, that my own suffering is like, how could this be? This isn't right. This, just, talking about the election, for example. And when I do that, it's another teaching in the Buddhist tradition, and is that of the second arrow, or sometimes translated as the second dart. So there's a pain, there's an injury, a harm that's done, which is the first arrow, right? So you could imagine somebody actually getting stabbed by an arrow. It's not life-threatening, but it hurts, it's painful. But then what do we do with that? Why me? Why did I get stabbed? What if this gets infected? What if oh no, it's always me. Something's wrong. The world is, all the stuff that we put on it. That's the second arrow. So maybe just noticing how, we're stabbing ourselves with the second arrow. So the second arrow is something that we have some control over, that we can notice that we're doing it, or we could avoid doing it altogether. It doesn't mean that we don't feel that pain, but there's a difference between pain and suffering. And even though suffering is inevitable, because that's the first noble truth, well, it's not inevitable all the time. It's a part of life, and there is suffering in our life, but there's actually a way to suffer less, and at times not be in suffering at all, by just noticing these patterns of mind, of how you know, we beat ourselves up, or we create these problems through our thinking. Um, and one remedy for that is also just, shifting into another important Buddhist teaching, and the four foundations of mindfulness. And the first foundation being the mindfulness of the body, is just shifting into noticing the body, which is a lot of what I was trying to do during this meditation, or lead you through. The body's always here with us. It's always a refuge that we can just sort of notice what's happening in the body, trying to do that without judgment or letting go of judgment when that comes up, just really opening up to what's here. And listen, this, if you're like me and somewhat politically engaged or politically minded, or caring about a lot of people who are vulnerable, the results of last week really are scary and you know, uncertain to say the least. And whatever a lot of what we are more certain of is not so good, right? It's been helpful for me a little bit to think about, to sort of separate out what we fear is going to happen from what's already happened, which is the election happened, right? And I think maybe to not so much mix up like the why did this happen, because I think that's a form of bargaining. And not that we shouldn't at some point analyze this, obviously, and understand it, but that becomes a bit of a second arrow. And like, who are these people who did this, who voted this way, and all of that? Like, I think we just have to, on one level, just allow that this has happened and really acknowledge it. And I think that there's still, I mean, I noticed it in myself. I imagine some of you too, still a little bit of bargaining, you know, like the stages of grief, right? Anger, denial, bargaining, depression. What I don't remember if there are other ones that we're going through. And but also within that, though, it's been somewhat helpful to understand that there's not one thing that happened. There's a lot of things, and I people who, if you know, again, if you're fairly politically engaged and focused in a certain way, it can easily feel like the enemy. These people are the enemy. Um, and they voted for someone who stands for a lot of things that we definitely don't stand for. And yet we don't know why they were voting. You know, a lot of people voting on their because their prices are gone up or whatever. You know, certainly a lot of people voted because they're, you know, racist or whatever, probably too, whether they acknowledge that or not. You know, that's probably a big part of things too, but it's not everybody, maybe not even the majority. It's hard to know. Um, but to notice, like, to really first have compassion for ourselves, like a little self-compassion. I think that's probably what's called for most right now. Again, I, you know, maybe some of you feel fine or happy and everything's going great. But if not, like, to also, and what I mean by self-compassion is to just acknowledge first that we're suffering. Like, this is painful. Um, Something's happening right now. And rather than judging that, like, just bringing some kindness to our own experience, like, and thinking about, I mean, that's one of the reasons I was asking, you know, what's been helpful in the last week? What is something that you can sort of treat yourself to? And maybe that's just a conversation with a friend or a family member that you usually find reassuring. Maybe just sitting down with a cup of tea or taking a walk or um, playing your favorite music, eating something that you enjoy, whatever. But I think it is important to first acknowledge that they're suffering, be with that suffering, like, you know, feel it in the body with kindness, even putting a hand on the heart or something like that. And then from there, maybe also being able to have compassion for others. And I think this is one of my favorite things to talk about is the difference between empathy and compassion. Um, and something I heard a few years ago, and uh, I heard it from Matthieu Ricard, who's a Buddhist monk, also had been a PhD scientist before, and interesting guy, and really researched this, and is often a subject of research on mindfulness, like brain scanning and stuff, and so forth. He talks about empathy. The way he's defining it is like feeling someone else's feelings, and often that's like feeling someone else's pain. And that while that's an important human quality to have, to be able to know, well, there's different kinds of empathy. There's cognitive empathy, which is just like kind of knowing what somebody else is feeling, and then there's the sort of feeling empathy of really like being in that emotion with the person. But that can be overwhelming, and it could lead to empathic distress and burnout and so forth. But if you shift to compassion, which involves, like, I'd say, more the cognitive empathy, knowing that someone's suffering, knowing what someone's feeling, in particular negative feelings, and just asking the question, like, what could I do to help right now? But not having to feel what they're feeling, not having to fully be in that. I think that's so self-compassion is part of that as well. I mean, you are feeling it already, so it's not the not feeling, but to wish well for somebody, but not just to wish, but where possible to take action, and also like keeping yourself in that circle of compassion so that you're not burning yourself out. So finding that balance, I think there's a bit of a balance, and maybe um, uh, in the again, sort of stepping back into another Buddhist teachings, the four what are called Brahma Viharas, or heavenly abodes, these qualities um, that it's recommended to cultivate as much as possible. Um, and compassion is one of them. And the other three are loving kindness, and metta is the way it's translated usually. I mean, the word is metta. It's usually translated as loving kindness, sometimes as friendliness or unconditional friendliness. Um, and appreciative joy when somebody else is having a good experience, is happy, like you feeling happy for them or appreciating that. And then finally, equanimity. And the equanimity, like the sense of balance, kind of helps balance it all. So like yes, compassion, but also like weaving in that equanimity of that being able to like know your own limits. And I think I'll stop there. I feel like I'm rambling a little bit, and I want to hear if there are any comments or questions. Um, and you're welcome to comment on how it went for you during the practice or anything that I've said since then. And maybe if you do ask, just like say where you are, if you like, acknowledging the land that you're on or the original inhabitants. Victor, I see you've unmuted.
Well, yeah, what has helped me is to I shifted from thinking, oh my God, this is just a country full of misogynists and racists and all of that just sort of thing. And what I shifted to as a result of just thinking and listening to stuff is that, there have always been many, many, many misogynists in our culture and in many cultures, and racists as well. This is not a new thing. It's just that, and his, the president-elect's victory was not by a huge margin. So there's still a lot of other people around who are not in that camp, and all it means is we have to fight in whatever way we can. And so it's not like, in other words, I've shifted from this global thing of, oh my God, it's just horrible everywhere, to like, okay, here's just putting in a little bit of historical context, maybe. And also what's helped me is just sort of looking out in the course of the day for positive, moments when I'm feeling okay or happy. So
nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. Victoria, go ahead and unmute.
Thank you. Thank you for this offering. I really appreciate it, and appreciate the Sangha here. I've heard that Jennifer Wellwood poem before, and it disturbed me the first time I heard it, which is a long time ago. And then today it triggered the same response. And I just especially right now, like since the election, I'm thanks to the miracle of Zoom, I'm in a lot of sanghas, and I spent literally like from early morning till night last Wednesday in the various sanghas I'm part of, like all over the world. It was really beautiful. But the one message that was so helped me so much, that came through again and again in these various gatherings, was hope. And I was just wondering, because I think the Jennifer Wellwood poem is really, it's very raw and real, and it's very adult. And that's like how her whole premise. And I get it. And I also know her biography, so I understand where it comes from. But I just wondered if you could talk a tiny bit about like why you chose it, not to defend it. I totally get why you chose. But the dancing the wild dance of no hope, I think I've always thought that was such an interesting line. And anyway, if you could just like parse it a little bit, I'd really love that. Thank you.
I'll try. I think, I also have this ambivalent relationship to the last line. But I think that this, what I found, and I think somebody posted this recently saying this is really speaking to them, and it resonated with me. And I had read it before, but it had been a while since I'd seen it. That I think that what is needed for me, maybe it was what was needed for me, is just like dealing with the reality and not pretending like this, that there's a line, hold on. Let's not act so betrayed as though life had broken her secret promise to us. I think that maybe for me was the core, like that this is what we're training for, is to deal with whatever comes up. And again, it doesn't, and I'd say what was missing from the poem for me, but I decided to read it anyway, was like the call to action. Because I think just dancing the dance of wild hope is not enough right now. But the other part, it did work, but a poem doesn't have to have everything. I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate it. And I didn't want to put you on on the stand about it, but I just wanted, yeah, I feel like the balance of realism and hope to me is where we all kind of have to find our place right now, that we do have to take action. And thank you for bringing that in. That's exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you. That balances it.
Thank you. April.
Hi, Bill. Thank you so much for the meditation and the vulnerability. I appreciate your willingness to just openly share and call a spade for where you're at right now and how you're feeling. And I think as a nation, it's something that we all need to come back to, even if we know we don't agree on many topics. We have to agree on some human premises, right? There's some things that just are non-negotiable. And the humanity of what happens next is super important, regardless of who the leader is, because I will say where we're headed and where we've been look very familiar. Not just like 2016 familiar, but like 1960 familiar. And I don't fear it. I'm just preparing for it. I recognize that there's good and bad in all sides of this issue. There are people on the right side doing wrong. There are people on the wrong side trying their best to do right. And I recognize that this is a human issue we're dealing with. And I want to share with you that I had the surprising but very timely opportunity to be at a house of worship that I'm not familiar with, which was Ebenezer Baptist Church in Georgia. And though I love and respect the work of Dr. King, I'm not his biggest follower. I know there are other people who know his life story in and out. I sat in a church completely dumbfounded, like, I don't know much about this church. And I realized in that moment what the pastor was attempting to do in this very historical time was to try and help heal people. And it's what we need more than anything else right now. And we've said it. I know I've said it. I've heard it many times, many times. But essentially, we always talk about being a hurt nation that's never healed. Many of us use different ways to say it. We've got bandages over our wounds. We've, skeletons in the closet. We say these things, but we've never really had a chance to peel back the layer and look at and deal with some of the painful things about our nation. Now is a 4-year opportunity. I know that sounds terrible, but it is. We've got good and bad on both sides of this issue, and we have no choice but to reckon with it. And the 4 years will pass, and we will still be stronger together. And the United States is a United States. And the blood that spilled didn't spill from one body. It spilled from many, many people. many nations were hurt, not just one of our nations. So it's hard for me to not stop and acknowledge that how everything that you're sharing and how I feel, and I think many of us on the Zoom today likely still feels very similar in your pain. We are a grieving nation, but we have been for a very long time. And this is an opportunity for the good to rise and stand together and link arms. In 2020, we had a chance to see it visually as the protest took place, but now is another opportunity. And we know when funding dries up from those who were forced to fund organizations that are doing good things for human sake, right, for humanity, or there's not going to be a closing of the door. Many of our doors are going to stay open because there are good organizations that do love people and do want to see good prosper. So I'm just encouraged at the opportunity to just share space with you, for us to call a spade a spade. There's good and bad happening in this world, and it has been all along, but now it's an opportunity for us to really get some Novocaine, because it's going to require something to numb the pain, and get to work. We got to get the root canal, whatever we need to do to start to work on some of the issues that we have in our nation. So just thank you.
Thank you so much, April. I really appreciate that. And it reminded me, one of the things I had intended to talk about was curiosity, getting curious about, where we have the opportunities, about people who we think are very different from us, who are still people, actually. And they may think about us much the way that we think about them. And so I think, like, how do we find ways to actually have meaningful civil dialogue with other people where we're really setting an intention of listening and hearing and being curious and learning. And I think that that's a commitment that I'm making. I think we had another raised hand where
I think we have time for one more for Isra. Is that saying it correctly?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, Esra.
Esra, apologies.
I want to thank you, April. And I think it was, everyone who spoke before, really, really meaningful to hear. I think acceptance came in pretty quickly at one point for me last week, but the waves of grief keep coming and going, let alone the confluence of the pieces of my own life that have nothing to do with this election, for example. And so what I've noticed, I've been through grief processes before, and I can't, I guide people through them in my professional work. But what's interesting is like grief burnout, which is different than compassion fatigue, and that's what I'm calling it. And so I'm grateful for the metaphor of dance. I just keep going through the stages. I go through, I observe like incredible anger, and then acceptance again, and heartbreak, and then the fantasy of encountering the other, in a way that could be really empowering. But even that, I sometimes wonder if that's an attachment to a hopeful outcome. And so I just wanted to point to the messiness of what's showing up for me, and that I seek to think beyond even dialectics, right? Beyond binaries. And I think, there's a little bit of hope that can be helpful sometimes, but then I worry that the hope kind of gallops away, and, there's the fantasy of me speaking to ex lawmakers with radically different views and advocating for environmental XYZ, and like, who knows how they'll respond, right? So, what I'm grateful for, and I think what I keep coming to is the anchor is this. So I just want to thank everyone present for making, and you, and like Bill, for you for creating, and everyone involved with Big Bear. Like, I went there for the first time recently for a 10-day, and, Sangha is so needed now. The place to do the snow globe, let the snow globe sit. So, that, and I think trying to cultivate joy just so I don't get burned out on all the heartbreak and the grief, not in a clinging way and not in a grasping way, but in like a wholesome, really needing to intentionally cultivate joy for myself, lest the burnout of all this grief, just I get lost in it. So I'm grateful for Sangha, and I'm grateful for reminding myself what makes life, meaningful. Sometimes it's activism, and sometimes it's doing something joyful and silly.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to comment on you use the term compassion fatigue, and I when I teach about empathy and compassion, sometimes I talk about that that's kind of a misnomer. I mean, you were talking about in terms of grief fatigue, which I actually don't know so much about, but what people call compassion fatigue is more likely empathy fatigue. It's the feeling. It's not, you don't get burnt out from being too compassionate if you're doing it in a, you know, healthy way, but you can get this empathic distress, which is essentially empathy fatigue, essentially. So, and that was something that I also heard from Mathieu Ricard when I first heard this distinction. And you can read about it in his book Altruism, which is, anyway, he's a great teacher as well. There was something else that you said that triggered something, and now I can't remember, but even the memory is impermanent. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have any last words, Madeline, to close out or talk about next week?
Thank you so much, Phil. We just wanted to let everyone know I put a link to the upcoming guests in the chat. And next week, our teacher is Trudy Goodman, who many of you know, the founder of Insight LA and many other things, incredible teacher. And then the following week, we have another great teacher, Lisa Ernst. So we hope you'll join us again. And Bill, thank you so much for volunteering your time today. We really appreciate it. And for just being you, just being amazing. Thank you so much for all you do for our community. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you all. And FYI, Trudy and Lisa, the next two on this, are currently in Big Bear, about to start teaching a retreat. So,
yeah.
All right. I hope to see you. Yeah, and maybe we'll send you. You had asked about follow-up stuff. We could send that maybe. I don't know if there's a way to send just to this group, but an email.
You can put anything in the chat if you want to reach everyone now.
I know some people have left already. For those of you who don't know me, and if you want to stay in touch, I'm just going to put my Big Bear Retreat Center email in the chat. One thing that I've been offering lately, I work with some UCLA psychiatry trainees, residents, as mindfulness-based cognitive therapy that's focused on, and we offer it freely, for free. And we're doing like 2 or 3 a year. So if it's something that it's for people who've had depression, and it's kind of, and particularly people who've had multiple episodes of depression, as a way of preventing relapse into future episodes. So usually when people are not necessarily depressed, but sometimes it can be helpful even when they're a little depressed. And it's an 8-week course, similar to kind of like mindfulness-based stress reduction, if you're familiar with MBSR. And we offer it mostly on Zoom. So if that's something that you're interested in, or you have somebody that that might be interested in, feel free to email me, and I'll kind of keep your information for the next time. We'll probably be doing it early next year. We're about to finish one round. That's all.